Take 4. Hi, welcome to Sewing Solutions, a podcast all about sewing. You can join the movement here. I'm Katie, and Aga's on the other line.
Hey girl, hey, what's up?
Oh, not much. We're just going to talk about sewing. Are you ready?
Oh yes, I am so ready. But wait though. How do I look?
Oh, girl, you'll be fine because most people are just listening, but you can go watch us over on YouTube. Let's go.
Let's go.
So for the people listening and or watching, this episode number 1 is all focused on what is Sewing Solutions, because we're a brand new platform. So we figured we would literally start at square one and describe what is our company and what exactly it is that we do. And it's a complicated answer because there's a lot of things that we do. So I've broken it down into these 3, for lack of a better word, pillars. And we're going to talk about them and describe exactly what they are. So the number 1, and I promise you I'm not going to read stuff off the whole episode, but just to get through these pillars because they're kind of beefy. Number 1 is honoring the legacy of sewing and its history of being handed down through the generations. And when Aga and I were brainstorming what it is that we wanted our company to be, one of my more visceral, I guess, emotional reactions was towards this idea that sewing historically has been passed down through the generation. And that's specifically how I learned. I think that's how everybody learns. It doesn't matter whether you go to design school like you did, Aga, or whether you learn from another seamstress or tailor. It has to just be handed down through the generations like any other trade or craft. And there's this disconnect right now because there's a lack of people who know how to do this. So historically, let's say my mom's generation or my grandmother's generation, they would have learned from the generation above them. But as we've gone down the lines of generations, now we no longer have our grandmas and our moms and our aunties and our next door neighbor that we can go knock on their door and say, hey, can you teach me how to sew this apron or whatever it is you want to learn? Now we no longer have that resource, that generational resource. So people are looking online, where we stepped in and decided, okay, we can bring that same sense. We can bring that same, I don't know what to call it. Maybe you can help me, Aga, but to me, it's a very emotional thing. And there's a lot of pride and honor that goes into it. And we really wanted our brand and our platform to have that sense.
Well, I think the way that everybody starts, right, is the first kind of taste of sewing that they get is they're being shown something, even if it's a tiny thing. And that's where a lot of people stop. Or if they do want more, then they don't know how to find it, or the person that were originally going to is busy doing X, Y, and Z, and now you can't get help. So it's hard to find that help if you do want to learn more. So if you're people
That's true.
that are skilled enough.
That's so true. And then I think at some point you can also outgrow your teacher. So maybe a lot of us were taught by our moms or grandmas or another family member, but at some point you've kind of tapped that resource to its extent. And then, like you said, you have to go looking for more information. And I know that was really hard for me when I was trying to learn this craft. It was definitely, I felt like a fish kind of swimming upstream, trying to figure out how to get access to this information. And it's really difficult when you don't even know what you don't know. So then how do you go looking for something that you don't know that's the missing piece that you need.
Yeah, for me, a little bit different because I was just being fed
Yeah.
information.
But didn't you also, I remember you telling me, because we've been besties for a while and we kind of compare our backgrounds quite frequently. And I remember you even telling me that when you graduated from design school, there were still gaps where you were like, how do I find this information?
Yeah, it was just very baseline information that I was taught. But if I wanted to excel in couture like I did, it was just learning by
Yeah.
doing or on the job. But still, there was just that language barrier between other seamstresses and me. So it was just kind of taking things apart and seeing how they're made inside, kind of self-taught.
And I feel like we could go down that rabbit hole for a while, and it's one that we are going to explore. Episode number 2 is specifically going to be not necessarily about the company, but it's going to be about us, the 2 co-owners. So we're going to dive deep down that rabbit hole the next one. But in focusing on what exactly Sewing Solutions is, so let's go to pillar number 2. So bridging the educational gap between those with sewing knowledge and those with the desire to learn, which I do feel like we've touched on that bridging the gap, that there's this kind of difficult access to people who have knowledge and people who want to learn, which is a pretty big one. I packed like a lot of stuff into number 3 because I didn't want to have this whole laundry list of like bullet point number 1, 2. So this one's a pretty juicy one to unpack. So empowering individuals to create for themselves and value sewing for personal empowerment, sustainability, and to generate a sewing movement against consumerism and fast fashion. So I think a lot of what we see today stems from the fast fashion industry having such a negative impact on sewing in general. Because you can go to Target and H&M and all these other conglomerates and buy a t-shirt for $5, why would you want to like learn how to sew that when it's going to take you so much longer? So I think,
Or even men.
yeah, or even mend it. Like, that's such a great point. Fashion now is just completely disposable, whereas before you would mend it, life out of your garment. So it's really sad to see that what a polluter that fashion has become. And then I think if more people actually learned how to sew, their minds would be so much more expanded and they would understand so much more deeply the issues with fast fashion, because it's going to teach them how to value sewing. So even if you're not sewing like couture garments, even if you just want to sew the t-shirt that you're wearing, like I'm looking at Aga's t-shirt because I'm obviously not really, it's a dress. I'm not wearing a t-shirt, I'm wearing a dress. If you try to make that,
I would dress though.
say, what was that?
You should tell us about your dress though.
Oh yeah, there is a video about this dress. I've had this dress for probably, my daughter was a newborn and she's almost 8. So yeah, I've had this dress for like almost 8 years. It had these like sleeves that I took off and it has holes in it that I've mended. And there's actually a video in our database that I use this specific dress and show how to mend. I love this dress. I'm going to wear it and mend it until it's completely threadbare.
Well, wait, for people that are listening, there's a video on the database. What does that mean?
Oh, well, you tell about the database. That's like your baby.
Yeah, so the database is my baby. It's just to be a really beefy catalog of tutorials that will be taught of teachers, different skill set, different intricacy levels. And they're just going to be short and speedy and to the point. Catalog is going to be great. It is great already.
Yeah.
We can't wait for you to
And then can you explain to the listeners how our database is searching for something on, do you think I can say the other brand name? Is that allowed?
Yeah,
Okay, so how is it different than
fine.
YouTube?
Everybody learns on the Academy of YouTube nowadays. It's no secret. Yeah, and the way that it works is you put in something that you want to learn, and you have all these so long videos of what so is creating these projects that perhaps you have no interest in creating, and you're just watching for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but then fast forwarding and then having to go back because you missed something. Basically, you have to watch the entire video in order just to get a little snippet of what you're trying to learn. And that's going to be the opposite of what we're trying to do. We're just trying to give you the knowledge so you can make whatever project you want. You don't have to go along sewing somebody else's design, somebody else's project. You can just take the skills from our database, from our catalog tutorial, and incorporate them into your own project and design your own thing.
That would have been so helpful for me, particularly. Like, I did not go to fashion school. I was taught on the job by seamstresses. So the stuff I learned was like very, very specific. Like, this is how you do a rolled hem kind of thing. So my knowledge gaps were actually really huge. So I would go home and then try sewing a dress for myself. So I'm out here draping on the stand with literally no instructions from anyone. I just you can see her eyes are like in pain.
Yeah, we had this situation last week. We were talking about how there is the most efficient way to make a waistband.
Yes, that was actually really fun to talk through that. But I don't want to get too sidetracked. So
Okay.
yeah, like I was, trying to drape on the stand. If I had a database at the time that I could literally just go how to drape a dress pattern or how to drape, or might not have even known the words to use for what I needed. I might have just needed to know, like, okay, how to make a pattern. Well, it would all pull up in our database based on these keywords. And then I still would have been able to make my project and not been like limited by a sew along, because I didn't want to sew that dress over there. I wanted to sew the dress that was in my head, the one that I had designed that I knew was going to flatter my body. Yeah. Or I remember the first dress I made, I did okay, like draping the skirt and draping the top of my bodice. It was like a little umpire waist here, but I wanted like a really thick waistband right here. So the first time that I made a waistband, I literally made a rectangle. It's I just laughing because she already knows what happened, but I didn't know. And I remember I sewed this rectangle on, and then I went to put it on my dress form, and it in the back it was like it like came up like this, and I was so frustrated because this was probably one of the last steps on this dress, and I didn't know how to fix it. I never finished it ever, which to this day kind of makes me sad because that fabric is really cute.
You know what you would have benefited from at the time? So I have two things to say, actually. First of all, the issue with watching
I
these
have to
though.
pause. We have to cut because somebody just knocked on my studio door. So we'll pick this back up.
So what we're trying to do with our database is make sure that like whatever, any teacher can submit a tutorial, but if somebody else makes a better tutorial, we'll keep in the better tutorial. Like, so our sewists are gonna get the best of the best classes. We're not messing around. Okay, so second thing, I was gonna say that what would have helped you with your waistband? You know what would have helped you with your waistband? Hang out.
Oh yeah, I was about to say darts, but yes, that too. Yeah, so we do bi-monthly hangouts where currently it's for our founding members, but when we have our full launch in fall, it's going to be open to all members. We just opened it up early for a founding members perk. So that's a really exciting resource that our membership contains, where you get on a Zoom call with us and you can bring any sewing questions you want, whatever project you're working on, anything you're struggling through, and we'll talk about it. That would have been very helpful. I would have come with my horrible upward slanting waistband. Been like, please give it CPR.
And it's tough to fix it when you don't even know what's wrong.
Exactly.
You don't know what to search
I feel
for.
like,
So getting feedback
yeah,
is crucial sometimes to
I feel like the more you're around people who sew, the better it is for you, because like you said, you don't know what you don't know. So just being in rooms with people and talking about sewing, you're going to pick up on so many things. For me, a lot of it was the terminology, because all of the women who taught me how to sew, English was not their first language. There was a huge language barrier. I remember the master seamstress who actually taught me dressmaking. Most of what we learned, we were like drawing pictures, because that's how big the language barrier was. So I quite literally did not know the word in English for a huge portion of the things and the techniques that I was doing. That doesn't mean that you're not a great seamstress. The work can be amazing. You just don't technically know what it's called in your language.
Yeah, what is that word that I taught you to say? I don't remember
There's like
now.
a lot of them. Remember bobby net?
Yeah. I know it, but I still choose to say it wrong.
Well, so Aga's giving me a hard time because I think it was Peter Sham was the word I said wrong. There's so many of them.
No.
I used to call understitching a top stitch. There's so many things that I called them the wrong thing, so I don't even know which one you're talking about.
Irrelevant.
Anyway,
Yes, Bobby
moving on. Yeah, now I give Aga a hard time because I finally got her when she pronounced bobbinet as bobbinet, and I'm gonna take that one to my grave. In the afterlife, gonna be like, hey, I know. I'm gonna be like, hey girl, remember bobbinet?
Yeah.
Or that one. Okay, so circling back because pillar number 3 had like so much juicy stuff in it. So we touched on this fast fashion component. One of the things that we didn't really touch too much on was the overconsumption, like consumerism and overconsumption. Our company wholeheartedly believes that if people are taught the fundamentals of sewing, and the fundamentals of sewing are something that's easily accessible to people, then there's going to be so much more appreciation for sewing. Because right now, I think it's very detached from a lot of first world countries. We're in the US, if you couldn't tell. Maybe not with Aga, but with me, I definitely come from the US. Sorry, girl. Aga had accent. I love it. The US is very far removed from the sewing industry and sewing factories. People quite literally have no idea how garments are made or where they come from. So how can you appreciate something and value something if you don't know what goes into it? So if you actually learn how to make that t-shirt that Aga's wearing, you're going to think twice when you're in H&M and you see a t-shirt for $5, when you're like, well, wait a minute. I just made a t-shirt, and when I bought the material at Joann's, I had to pay $5 alone for the necessary materials. And then I spent 6 hours making the thing. So the math won't be mathing. And it's going to be very obvious to people that overconsumption and fast fashion are incredibly harmful. And then I think that's also empowering, because I don't think that's a new concept for people. It's actually an ever-growing concept right now. this anti-fast fashion, this anti-consumerism movement, but it's very debilitating when you know that something is wrong, but you can't do anything. Like, you don't have any tools in your toolbox to work against it. So sewing solutions, I think, is going to be one of the most powerful things that people can use if they, want to say no to fast fashion and make life choices to combat that. You can mend your clothing and get more life out of it. You can say no, like, I don't need to go and buy my wardrobe at Target. Sorry, pick on you, Target, or, any of these Walmart, any of these conglomerates that condone fast fashion. You don't need to do that because I can go thrifting and now I have the skills to make that thrifted item fit me, or to redesign that thrifted item to mend it. I think it's just such a powerful tool. Sewing is so powerful.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Sewing Solutions podcast. Here's where you can find out more and stay in touch. Follow our Facebook page and join our Facebook group by searching Sewing Solutions. Follow our Instagram at sewing.solutions.official. You can also send us comments and questions through Instagram voice memo DM or email us at sewing.solutions.official@gmail.com. Thanks and happy sewing.